Welcome to 2023, the year of universal level dysfunction. We're only a couple months deep and we're already suffering from the effects of global instability, COVID fatigue with the fear of new mutations, rising inflation, rising ocean levels, rising baguette prices, loss of body autonomy, especially if you're a woman, toxic masculinity, toxic femininity, rising hate crimes, war crimes, political crimes, social media crimes. And Mother Earth is basically at the stage where she's about to evict us like an angry landlord for smashing up the place. Is this a metaphorical symbol for the destruction caused in 2023? Or just a reminder to not leave cats near props? And with all of those heavy cultural themes bubbling over in the background, we're still supposed to wake up every day serving face and waist and feel secure within ourselves? Are we just a bunch of wounded individuals colliding into each other? Creating our own brand of chaos wherever we go? We are spiritual beings having a physical existence. It's not the other way around. But the ancients knew it. But their teachings have been mysteriously lost and forgotten, or have they? We've become so disconnected to self. We've allowed our logical brain free rein while we've lost our innate abilities to intuitively listen to our own heart. So if you're still with me and you've watched this far, now I'm going to get into my story. My first memories was noticing that music was a part of my soul's expression and dance was how I felt freedom. My house was filled with music, and there wasn't a day that I didn't hear my father practicing on his black Gibson electric guitar. Practicing every day well into the night with his headphones on, and I could hear his fingers strumming on the strings as he dedicated all of his hours to practicing his art. He came alive on stage, and in my formative young little brain, I recognized this as a place that I wanted to be. When you're the child of a musician, you view them as almost superhuman. But that might be just how all daughters view their fathers. That's until the bubble bursts and you view them as mortal man. My father, from a young age, as an Italian immigrant to Australia, felt that he was robbed of fulfilling his dreams because he was put straight to work to make money for La Familia, which is a common story for any immigrant family traveling to a new Western world. Dreams of becoming a famous artist, but his obligations to his family later became what he punished us with. His narcissism that was diagnosed as borderline personality disorder, which we would only find out months before his death. You see, we never questioned his cruelty. We just somehow learned to function around it. And that is nowhere near living. That's just existing. Nothing could stop the slow drip of poison that started from a 5-year-old girl watching her father leave on Christmas Eve to return to his first family without a word or a note, which he did on a revolving door basis based on different stages of his life and whatever personal interests he had going on. And this would reopen my abandonment wound at different stages of my life every single time. My father ruled with fear, intimidation, and in my young brain, I could never understand why he was being so mean. and that betrayal and infidelity was at the forefront of my parents' relationship, alongside financial manipulation and downright bullying and racism directed towards my mother and her young children. And an ex-wife that practiced an ancient Egyptian style of witchcraft. She would use a number of intimidation tactics when we were out in public, at family events, which would result in me being washed in water as soon as we got home to cleanse ourselves of evil. That is a lot to digest for a 5-year-old. It seemed like all the singing, dancing, and laughter stopped at a young age and was replaced by something else, like the colors started to drain from my reality. I remember being involved in theatre around starting at the age, say 13, upwards through my teen years, and being able to sing, act, and dance all at the same time was like being at a creative buffet and being able to eat all the foods at once. But enter my dad being in a particularly bad space, and it must have been after a failed business venture or a job loss, and there were many, because he had extreme issues with authority and control. And you knew he was in one of his dark moods. His whole demeanor had changed. The look in his face turned dark. His eyes turned dark. And that meant that he was going to make a huge scene in public. So after my performance, you know, you're on a high. It's actually one of the best legal highs you can get. And I floated off the stage to my parents, and all I can hear is my dad's voice loudly saying how disgusted he was in the whole performance, and it's a disgrace to music, and it's pathetic, and we should be ashamed of ourselves. And I remember standing there, and it was like one of those scenes in a movie where the room goes quiet and it's just you having that sinking feeling, and everyone turns around from getting love, flowers, and acknowledgement from their own families to turning and facing me and hearing my father still exploding into one of his tirade rants and giving zero apologies for it. And I had one of those out-of-body experiences when it's just you sitting in your shame and everything's quiet and everything's silent and everything stops. And your inner voice is screaming at the top of your lungs and none of it's good. And when you're a teenager, you are so seeking validation from those around you, especially my classmates. You know, being a creative and being able to express myself was one of the most important things in my life. And having to be so embarrassed, shamed, and belittled in front of them was different. I mean, I was used to being berated in private, but this was just my private life meeting my public life. This continued all the way to the car, and everyone in the car is crying, screaming, and trying to get him to stop his rant. And all that he could manage to say about his behavior is that he believed that we were all overreacting. His jealousy reminded him of how utterly unfulfilled he was with his own life, and to see his youngest child express herself creatively was something that he had to squash immediately, just as his dreams had been. When you're creative, you're at your most vulnerable because you're in reception mode. So I felt all of my extreme highs were met by extreme lows. Enter my relationship with substances and liquor that would last for many years. So after about a decade of these type of events happening in my life, it left a very chaotic internal voice, one that was divisive and angry and always on the lookout for who was the next to attack me. With all this bubbling, my father continued to ruin all of my personal milestones in sports, music, and dance until I let all of them go. It was a combination of all these events that I made the decision to never let him take my joy ever again. And it was also that moment when I shut out feeling anything at all. Feeling abandoned by the man I idolized did more than just merely chip away at my self-worth. It left a gaping hole in my whole identity. Constant feelings of shame, abandonment, hurt on a regular basis did irreparable damage to my young mind. And so grew the layers of negative experiences that shaped who I was out in the world. It left me completely open to manipulations, trauma bonding, bullying, and abuse in all of its forms. Somewhere in my teens, I turned away from embarrassment and shame and turned towards nuclear level rage. And it was like worthy of Marvel, like a she-beast type character. Yeah, ugly. When you are forced to suppress parts of yourself, it's like two characters are created. One, the shell of a person that you create just to make it through the day without feeling hurt, feeling rejected, feeling anything really. Two is the wild, unfiltered side that basically only comes out when it's safe. Now, this second part is what you use to defend yourself, to avoid hurt, and at the extremes of this can hurt others. Because at the core of you, you can't deny that this was created to protect the little girl that all she wanted to do was dance and feel loved. So this creates a dichotomy of personas, kind of like the Beyonce visual album, the Lemonade album, where she's dancing down the street, skipping down the street rather, to hold up. And she's looking really pretty in a nice dress, but she's got a bat and she's smashing up the place. It's exactly like that. Parts of my consciousness that I had given zero attention to grew like a dark weed, and it was something that I tried to keep contained. My view on relationships was fractured. This is what I grew up with, this is what I saw from my parents, and that was my baseline of normal. Now, this has taken years to unravel and to make the conscious decision to understand that this is who I'd become at my core. And trust me, when all of this hit, I entered a very dark place, very dark place. I had to face all the layers that I had created to protect myself with. And there is nothing pretty about facing a childhood wound that runs basement levels deep. Now, this oppressive figure in your life may not have been a father, could be a mother, a sister, a brother, a co-worker, but what it represents is the catalyst of the moment where you completely lost your self-worth. Being a creative, I began to weave the threads that I left behind in my childhood. Like a painting, I started in my childhood and I'm only now beginning to add some color to. This is my comeback era. When is it time for yours? Small changes every day can create a change that echoes across a lifetime. Now, I know everybody says journaling, but I don't know if they've clearly articulated exactly why it is so beneficial. Give yourself a voice, which is so important for the introverts, the misrepresented groups, anyone that suffers from anxiety or any other condition that leaves you feeling misunderstood, unheard, and small. Get to know yourself so you don't give yourself away for free. Give yourself your voice back. That's the first step, even before you begin to share yourself with others. Your emotions are truths unrealized. What are your emotions trying to tell you? Cut out the energy vampire, friends and family. You are not an extra on True Blood. El Drano. Do not let energy vampires zap all that precious life force that you need for yourself. And this goes out especially to my empaths, INFJs like me, HSPs, highly sensitive people, and the starseeds. When you have been a chronic people pleaser, you become comfortable minimizing yourself and are often the one that suffers in silence, anything to deflect the attention away from yourself. It's easier that way. We are not food for prey. Be a snack, not a whole meal for the wolves. Anyone that is for you will respect your process. Go where you are seen and understood, period. Having clearly defined boundaries in both your physical and spiritual lives is necessary. You are not an emotional dumping zone. Therapy. Choose a therapy that works for you. And isn't it time that we changed our perceptions that therapy is for sick people? And to that, it is a process that aids in transformation and self-evolution. Hurt people hurt people. Kendrick said it, and Will Smith showed it. His childhood wound surrounding him watching the physical abuse of his own mother was triggered with the writing of his book and had him stepping all the way out of his frame in a very public way. If that's not a strong case for adults reactivating a childhood wound in their adult life, I don't know what is. Personally, I resonate with healing that happens at the quantum levels. That's where I've seen the biggest shifts personally to my greatest limitations. Quantum mechanics has proven that energy never rests. We are energy. This is not pseudoscience anymore. The most important connection you can have in this life is between your mind, body, and spirit. And if you don't understand yourself, how can we expect others to? And trust me, you can't outrun your past. I have tried this multiple times, moving to different foreign countries, trying to drop off my trauma in a foreign country, I guess. The current state of your world is exact to the level of imbalance that you are living. Isn't it time that you made your personal healing journey a priority? And if I can re-emerge from swimming in liquor bottles daily like some deranged genie, so can you. When is the last time that you checked in with yourself? And I'm not talking about your head, because if you rule only with your head, that's where the problems start. And I'm talking pain. Letting go of the control of every outcome is not easy, but reconnecting with yourself is. Last year, I completely burned out my whole brain by not intervening while I contemplated controlling the whole universe from the couch. The brain is the logical processor. This is not where your intuitions lie. We are meant to be in constant communication with our higher selves. The capabilities of our heart have been grossly underrated. This is a neurotransmitter that is constantly relaying messages to your cells, other people, and to you. We have somehow become too interested in every other human's life, down to the insignificant details and keeping up with their dog. We have somehow left ourselves behind in the process. Who is caring for you? Bear with me, I know this is where I might lose some of you. But in my own experience 4 years ago, when I began to ask the questions, what is my unique life expressions and imprint in this world? Astrology had the answers. Please do not be put off by a bad experience where someone judged you just straight off of your sun sign. You are more than the worst meme on socials about. And the majority of the information on socials only speaks to the lowest expressions of these signs, which is a one-sided, imbalanced view. You need the whole natal chart to get the correct picture. By beginning to understand your transits that are most influential to your life, you begin to get back into the rhythm of working with the universe. Feminine energy is creator energy. Why wouldn't you want to be connected to this? Learning about my placement of Pluto in the first was honestly revelatory. Understanding how my presence in a room could elicit a strong love-hate response instantly was mind-blowing. Being aware of what your projections are energetically, consciously and unconsciously can save so much misunderstanding for those around you. Which, wow, if I knew this in my 20s, I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you in my 30s. We've had Saturn already move into Pisces, and Pluto has just changed into Aquarius. It is a revolutionary energy, people, and it happened on the 23rd of the 3rd, 2023. That is divinity in motion. Have patience though, a cultural renaissance is coming. It has taken many years to break out of having the starring role in a dark psychological thriller with glimpses of a supernatural comedy, starting with what I allow in my life and what I feed my mind. Pollution from the cellular level affects more than just your physical health. You need to get into the trenches of your spirit daily and do the work. And learn to accept all parts of your life. It is the pathway to unlocking the metaphorical binding that has kept you small, broken, and without purpose. I had to isolate myself from everything that I'd known to recreate the young girl that was denied her own unique life's expression. So get at me and let me know if this resonates with you in the comments. And the reason that I'm sharing myself and my story is to give others the courage to break free like I have. From all the conditioning, the programming, and all the half-truths that we've been fed till we no longer recognize the person that we have become. But most importantly, to become consciously aware of what kind of human you are and what your contribution is to the current state of the universe. We can affect change at any moment. This is my contribution. What will be yours?